get away with doing that. I couldn't do that with anyone. I'm loving the coat. I feel like we're going to be in conversation.
Okay. I'm just going to look at you.
Are you ready? Okay.
Yeah.
So what we'll do is we'll break after this, guys. And depends on whether Sarah's comfortable with this, but we've got some pre-prepared questions, or we could take some from the audience. Maybe we'll start with the pre-prepared one, and we'll see what the vibe is. Sarah Baffo is running for the Welfare and Liberation Officer. In this role, the candidate will be the principal representative of Goldsmith Student on matters relating to welfare and liberation. Again, they'll also be a member of the trustee board and represent the views of students on these issues locally and nationally. As you've noticed this year, we have one candidate for the position. Who wears fabulous coats. Sarah, if you could introduce yourself. So what we're going to obviously ask, like with the other candidates, you do a 3-minute speech and tell us, what's your vision and why you're running.
Okay.
Cool. A round of applause to welcome Sarah again.
I'm probably not going to do 3 minutes. So as you said, my name is Sarah Baffo. I'm a third-year student studying anthropology. And my goals, it's kind of easier now, no one's running against me and I'm unopposed, but my goals is, I've always said, is be unapologetically radical in opposing structural oppressions. And when I say unapologetically, is throughout my role. And is that I've always said my politics is I don't believe in reforming the system, is creating alternative spaces for us and by us. And in that way, if you read my manifesto, you see that I do want to tackle the SU and also want to tackle in the institution. I've had past experience. I was the first BME rep in Goldsmith, department rep. And in that way, I ensured that I created spaces where black and brown voices were amplified, where we didn't rely on the system to liberate us, whereas we liberated ourselves. I think that's really important. And throughout my role, hopefully, without any backlash, I will do that, and I will prioritize liberation at the heart of the institution and the SU. So yeah, that's my own.
Amazing. Thank you very much for that. Okay, so we're going to go first to the pre-prepared question, but I just want to get a sense from the audience. Does anyone have questions in the audience? I can see your hand. We can just see whether we continue with these. All right, no worries. It's a good thing we've got some questions here. So the first question is, and do have a think, because I'm sure you've got something you want to know. What 3 things will you prioritize if elected?
Yes. My first one is, in my manifesto, I say take back our union, which is, I know Lauren spoke about this earlier, but I want to expand on, I really do want to do a governance review in the SU and the institution, because the SU currently is not democratically led by students. And in that way, I want to hold account SU staff members, sabbatical officers, and also the institution, because I know that I'm going to have a lot of backlash with the institution, but I also need a supportive team and a support network within the SU. And in that way, there needs to be a restructure of the whole SU. In that way, so my first priority before I go into big steps is doing a governance review in the SU. The second one is, I do really want to work with the local community. Regentrification is happening in South London. We all know that. So I definitely want to work with local businesses, especially black-owned businesses, and try to bridge a community with student community and the local community. I also I know this is 100, but I want in my manifesto, which I'm definitely going to do, I really want to start free breakfasts for local communities and students in the mornings. And in that way, we can bridge that conversation, have difficult conversations about how Goldsmith is complicit in gentrification in South London. And the last one is work on Gava demands. I forgot that for a minute. And work on Gava demands. I was part of the 137-day occupation. And right now, the institution SMT is tokenizing our demands and acting as if it's actually working. But a lot of, specifically 5 of our demands is being blocked and is being slowed down. And I definitely want to work on ensuring that it is met, because students kind of sacrifice their mental, spiritual and physical health whilst occupying the whole building. And I definitely want to get that met and create a network, a liberation network with students and staff members.
Amazing, thank you. I heard a really nice from the audience. I think we've got people here with you. Cool, so I'm going to go on to the second question, but again, just have a little think about what you want to ask Sarah. She's here, she's ready. Second question. It has been said that there's a crisis in student mental health. Do you agree with this? And if so, what would you do to help tackle this?
Yes. We all know there's a huge mental health issue within Goldsmith, and especially now Evolving Goldsmith is happening. That will have like a detrimental effect not only on staff, not only on students, but also precarious staff members. It will have effects on BME students, marginalized students. So again, it's working and tackling on Evolving Goldsmith and hopefully not making that happen. Also, I would want to make a liberation strategy network, whereas like liberation is at the center of the institution and the SU, because there's a lot of institutional racism that's currently happening. And yeah, so I definitely want to work on that and continue working with the mental health strategy that's currently happening, and work with the whole institution in ensuring that mental health is addressed in all aspects, having more BME mental health specialists, addressing why there's a huge mental health issue, what's causing it, like tackle the root issues. And I definitely would do that. So, yeah.
Amazing. Thank you. You know what I'm going to ask you, don't you? Come on, show me a hand. Someone's got something they want to ask Sarah. I've got questions, but I'm interested in what you want to ask. There we go. All right, I'm going to do Mike. Give me your name. Ask me your question. I'd say make it relevant to all the candidates, but it's not applicable this time.
Hi, my name is Galila.
A little bit louder for me.
My name is Galila.
Great.
How did your experiences growing up, your day-to-day experiences in general, shape not your politics, but what you do now, your work now, and everything? Yeah, you know what I mean. Yeah.
So it was Galila.
Yeah.
That's a great question. I told you it's going to be like in conversation. I knew that the vibe was right there. All right, did you capture it?
Yes.
Cool.
I've got that. That's such an amazing question. Being a black Muslim woman, and I've experienced like a lot of Islamophobia and a lot of anti-blackness every single day of my life. So I think that shaped my politics. And knowing that, growing up in a very white working class area and having like a lot of racial slurs, and growing up knowing that the system isn't designed for me. And I knew that from a very young age in primary school, knowing that why is a lot of black students being kicked out in primary school? Like why do I go in secondary school in primary school that a lot of Afro-Caribbeans have amazing grades in primary school, enter secondary school, and that dramatically drops. So I always knew that was an issue, but I never knew how to articulate it. And then I think what made me realize is we can't be passive in these institutions. We can't wait for the institution to liberate us, because that would never happen. My goal is, and I've always said that, and hopefully I stick within the year, is we can't reform the system, we must dismantle it completely. And I don't believe so. I believe that we have to create foundations, right? Like Mona, such an amazing welfare and liberation officer, currently built those foundations. Her predecessors, like Tara, built those foundations, and we continuously have to build those foundations to completely dismantle the institutions, because it cannot change, right? You can't change the institution with the institution tools. So we have to be militant, we have to be direct. And I knew that from a very young age, when people used to say racial slurs to my mother and my brother and my sisters. And I think, and myself, and having to be in university, being the first BME rep in the anthropology department that refused to look at institutional racism, but I became the problem, but also the solution. So it did not make sense. And again, it made me realize the reason we in GARA, Goldsmith Anti-Racist Occupation, our 12 demands weren't met, is because we did direct action, because we was militant in every single stage and every single aspect of what we did. And I personally believe, like I said, we have to be militant in our response whilst fighting the institution, and that's what I will do. I will F up the system whilst getting paid. So yeah, that's my goal.
It's like the most polite swearing I've ever heard, can I swear? All right. Yeah. Brilliant, thank you. Who else has a question for Sarah? I'm going to hold this space because I believe that one of you do, and I saw a hand, so I'm done. There we go, let's go. Give me your name, and as loud as you can.
Hi, Sarah.
Hey.
My name is Rambi Sai. I love your coat.
Thank you. ASOS.
I just wondered what liberation meant to you, just in general. What does it look like for you?
Gorgeous question. So, Rambi, what does liberation mean like to you? What does liberation mean to you?
Oh, that's such a beautiful question.
That's a beautiful question.
I want to think about it and I want to articulate it in a beautiful way, because that's such a beautiful question. For me, liberation, I can say what liberation doesn't mean to me. And I think liberation doesn't mean surviving every single day. It's living. And it's living in a space where we're not always having to experience violence mentally and physically. And I think liberation should not be surviving. And I think it's essentially living. in a way that we're not so consumed by these institutions that, again, are not for us. So again, I think for me, liberation is just living in a way that we're not racialized, we don't have to experience violence, we don't have to die for these systems. So yeah, liberation is just living for me in a way that, yeah.
Thank you so much. Now, I think we'll have one more question to close. And if not, I might even just kind of culminate, I think, like, how would you enable Goldsmith students to also, experience liberation? What are your ideas if you were, or hopefully be elected in?
No one vote me.
No, yeah. What does liberation look like in Goldsmiths, and how will you enable that to happen?
Currently right now we have like a lot of student groups, and it's today is actually such a important example where the warden decided to meet with art students, and they were like white art students, and refused to meet with GARA members for months. We had to force them, and we know GARA is like mainly POC led. So again, it's like bridging those student groups together and coming up with like a liberation strategy. I don't want to go into this role and people expect me, being a single like one individual, to solve institutional racism, right? And to continuously work on liberation. Liberation has to work in different like angles. We have to come together as a group. And I think that's how we work, being collective, and like collective consensus coming through like different solidarities. So bringing different groups together and knowing that we have different tactics, but there's an end goal, right? To dismantle these institutions that are violent. So again, it's definitely bringing all these student bodies together, but that needs to happen ASAP. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Can we give Sarah a massive round of applause? I think you had everyone captivated. I really felt everyone was very, very present for you. So thank you very much, and big up yourself again for being the person who comes on the stage on their own. You've completely owned the space, so
Thank you.
well done. And we're going to invite you to step down. Thank you.